Happy New Year. I know sometimes it's always not clear to me when you stop saying Happy New Year, but I'm going to keep saying Happy New Year since I'm not quite sure when we're going to actually, we're recording this and when it gets released. So Happy New Year. Hope everyone's 2023 has gotten started off great. This is Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO, Maryland's economic engine for early stage technology growth. I'm really excited today. I think all you know, I've had a journey in higher ed. And so I'm always excited when we're able to bring on our colleagues and our partners here that work with us in the ecosystem here in Maryland at higher ed. And so I couldn't be more excited today to bring on President of Washington College, which you'll learn a lot more about. Many of you may not have heard of Washington College, but you're going to know about it after today. Mike Sosulski, and I probably didn't say his last name right, so I'm going to ask for grace and mercy. We're going to be calling him President Mike for the rest of the show. President Mike, thanks for being on the show today.
Troy, this is great. Thank you so much for welcoming me to the show. And it's really exciting to have this conversation with you about innovation.
Absolutely. So let's start out a little fun. And so we got a pretty crack team here at TEDCO that goes out and finds out cool stuff about our guests. So we found out a few little things about you. And so I'm going to, in the light of that, I'm going to do a little magic here and change my background. Because I know somebody is a Cub fan. Is that right?
I think you might be right about that. It might be an illness, but that's one I'm never going to get over, I'm afraid.
So yeah, I mean the Cubs are everyone's favorite losers, although they get a World Series here, at least in the last 50 years or so. So tell me your favorite. What makes you a Cubs fan?
I grew up in Chicago, and when you grow up in Chicago, you come home from school about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You want to take a little break before you do your homework, and so you sit down in front of the TV in the living room, and nothing else is on except soap operas and the Cubs. I chose
WGN. Thank you for WGN.
That's right. No, I love Chicago. It's always been one of my favorite cities in the United States, and I'm coming to really appreciate Maryland and the Eastern Shore. And we've been to Baltimore Orioles games, which, boy, that is one of the most beautiful parks I've ever been in my life. And we've been to the Ravens, so we're adding to our affiliation.
That's pretty good. Now, I also know, as you can tell from the background here, that you're a lover of jazz. In particular, Lester Young, who goes by the nickname of the Prez. And so I'm going to go ahead and surprise you that when this is finished up, one of the things we're going to do is do some music overtone from Lester Young is going to be in the background when we speak. So tell me more.
That is.
I told you we got a good team here at TEDCO, bro.
You've gone deep on your
So tell folks about Lester Young.
So Lester Young was probably my first love in jazz when I was a teenager. A great family friend gave me a double album set of Lester Young playing with the Count Basie Orchestra and on his own. He had a great lifetime partnership from the 1930s all the way through 1950s with Count Basie and also Billie Holiday. They were very, very close friends, and they made some of the most beautiful recordings you'll ever hear from that era. And of course, Billie Holiday, native of Baltimore.
There you go. Back to the Maryland connection. I love it. I love it. So let's obviously talk about you and your journey to Washington College. You're what I would consider a traditional academician. You've gone through the steps. You've been at Georgetown and went to Chicago, and then had a number of teaching and administrative positions. So talk to us about that journey, and then if you could transition to Washington College. Let's really spend and let me help you a little bit with Washington College to let folks know. So again, I'll let them tell you about Washington College, but it's a private institution here in Maryland. But I had a chance to tour it because one of the things that we have here in Maryland that's really unique is we have an entity called the E-Innovation that I sit on. I'm one of the people that sit on it. And what it does, it works with all the institutions, both public and private, providing matching state dollars to their endowed funds to provide professorships and chairs that are focused on innovation and economic impact in their communities. And so some of the work some of the submissions that Washington College has submitted, with all due respect to the other schools, have been really, I think, very innovative, and it allowed me to come and visit their school a couple of months ago. So that's how we got this connection. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Troy. I mean, the Maryland Innovation Grant through the Department of Commerce has been just transformational for the college. And I can talk a little bit about what that looks like in practice in a little bit. You asked about my journey, and you're right, it is a fairly traditional journey. I started as a faculty member, studying German language, culture, and linguistics, and did that in graduate school. Had a good 20-year career as a faculty member teaching mostly in liberal arts settings, which I really deeply believe in. And I think as a model for education, that's one of the reasons why I felt like it would be really a wonderful thing to step up into more leadership roles like that of chief academic officer in the liberal arts context, and then most recently as president here at Washington College, because I just believe in that model, that model of higher education that gives students a really deep preparation in specific areas of study that are interesting to them and that will lead them to great careers when they join the workforce, but also supports that with a broad based general education. So lots of information, lots of knowledge from different fields that create the context for their deep specialized knowledge from their major. I just think that's such a great model. And, liberal arts colleges tend to do that better than most. We really prepare our students in a well-rounded way so they can think through complicated problems from all kinds of different perspectives, not just one.
So tell us about Washington College.
So Washington College is the 10th oldest college in the nation. Wow. It was founded in 1782 by a man named William Smith, who had been the provost at the University of Pennsylvania. He came down to Chestertown to start his own college. And one of his biggest supporters in 1782 was General George Washington. And George Washington not only supported the college with a gift, a cash gift, which was a fairly rich one for the time. The college ended up using that gift to buy scientific equipment to outfit their labs. So even in the 1780s, you needed more than just a classroom and a chalkboard. You had to get some scientific equipment, and George Washington made that possible. But he did more than that for Washington College. He also joined our board of trustees. And we're the only college in the country that he served in that way. And to which he gave his name, Washington, voluntarily. All those other Washingtons, those colleges, those universities, they're borrowing.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, but we've grown into a truly unique institution of higher education, not just in Maryland, but in the country. And innovation is one of the things that has given us that wonderful, unique signature. And you talked about the Maryland Innovation Grants, which have been so beneficial over the last decade for us. Several of them have supported our unique Center for the Environment and Society, which I know you got to tour when you were on campus here. And that is a place where students can engage in what really we think is our signature activity, which is hands-on learning. We are one of the best colleges in the country for students to experience hands-on learning. So you've got the wonderful classroom instruction where students are getting that theory, they're getting rigorous training in the theoretical side of their discipline, but then they get to do all these wonderful things in a hands-on kind of way. So when you think about workforce preparation, we're sending students out into the world that are ready on day one because they've done these things, they've seen these things, they haven't just studied them in the classroom.
Outstanding. So a couple of things I want to double click on there and then talk about the visit that I had. I mean, 1782, I just want you to kind of think through that for a minute. I mean, the 10th oldest school in the country is here in Maryland. What you didn't get a chance to talk about actually was Chestertown and as well as because we have viewers all over the country, all over the planet. So people may not know Chestertown and the Eastern Shore and Chesapeake and the role that you play with that.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. If you think about the shape of the state of Maryland, it's really kind of bisected by the Chesapeake Bay, which is one of the world's greatest and largest estuaries. It's just an incredible place to live, to work, and to study. And particularly now when we're thinking about the way in which the climate has been changing, we feel it. We feel it every day. We see it. We can observe it right on the Chesapeake Bay. And Chestertown is one of the oldest towns on the Eastern Shore. It was in the 18th century when the college was founded. It was one of the most important ports of call for shipping from Europe, and also an important political route north and south. Thinking about the way in which the colonies had to organize themselves. The road from Richmond, up through Virginia, and Maryland, and then northward through New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, and Massachusetts. This was part of that road, and Chestertown was a really important port of call. So the president's house at Washington College in lovely Chestertown was built in 1742.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and that house is quite a historic location. George Washington stayed there. He recorded in his diary that he danced in our parlor. And we haven't ourselves, but that house has been a host to Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, so many of the founders. I mean, Chestertown is a wonderful place to visit if you're interested not only in history, but also in this beautiful environment that we have on the Eastern Shore, which looks very different than the Western Shore of Maryland.
So I love you talking about one of many things on my visit was this beautiful building you have sitting right there on the river, I guess there, that really is, to your point, this living, learning laboratory that your students are leveraging. So if you could talk about that, that'd be great.
Well, we have in the last 15 years really dedicated ourselves at Washington College to developing our waterfront campus. So our main campus was built on a hill, as many were in the 18th century and 19th centuries. And it's about a mile away from the actual waterfront. But the college acquired some lovely property right on the Chester River, which is one of the largest tributaries to the Chesapeake Bay. And most recently, 3 years ago, we were able to open Siemens Griswold Environmental Hall, which is a beautiful living building that contains wet labs, scientific labs for water quality experimentation and tracking, classrooms, and beautiful offices for our Center for Environment and Society staff, which is, again, one of the most, it's one of the crown jewels of Washington College, giving students a real opportunity to get that kind of hands-on learning right on the waterfront.
So no, it's a beautiful building, and I also love to talk to you also about, I'm giving pieces of my journey because I was there, I guess, most of the day. I was there most of the day. Just the overall wetlands that you have there, the ability with the wetlands work that you're doing there, and some of the conservatory work that you're doing there. I think folks will really be. I think if folks ever get a chance to not just visit Chestertown, which is a beautiful town, but the campus itself it's not just an academic, it really is a living learning. He'll talk a minute about the wetlands there that they have, and like these birds that they've got flying around, all this other stuff. It's just an amazing place for the size. And you didn't mention how big, it's not that big of a school, but the impact that you're having there in that area is absolutely amazing.
It really is. It's very impressive, actually. And I'd love to welcome people to campus and give them a tour of our waterfront campus in particular. One of the things that you got to visit, Troy, which is one of our most exciting and most recent additions to our environmental assets for student learning, is what we call the River and Fields campus. And it is a 5,000-acre preserve of wetlands, fields, forest, and agricultural lands, all combined, right on the Chester River, again, just a couple of miles away from our main waterfront campus. And what you got to observe there is one of the most exciting things is our bird banding operation.
Yes.
we have a staff there, a really wonderful team of folks who track and record and do research on migratory birds, which, of course, you can imagine is one of the most exciting things that you can do on one of the world's largest estuaries, where we are a site of major migration patterns for all sorts of species. And so students are out there working with the bird banders and becoming bird banders all the time. And even more recently than that, I think you got to see this facility as well. We have been partnering with organizations to do bird safe glass testing.
Exactly.
Out at the site there, which again is just a wonderful contribution to the conservation of wildlife.
So people are clear what we're talking about here. They have an experiment where they literally are testing the type of glass so that birds won't basically fly into it and kill themselves. And this is what they're testing.
That's right. We know this is a big problem, particularly in cities, right?
And clearly they're not killing birds. Let me make it. They're not killing birds. They got this really cool way that they kind of test to see if birds will fly to the glass and everything. It's actually very innovative. But when you see it, you're just like, okay, didn't think about that, but that is a problem.
It's a big problem, especially in large cities. In recent years, all these skyscrapers seem to want to have reflective glass in them, right? Which looks pretty cool to the viewer from the ground level, but to birds, it can be quite deadly.
Gotcha. So again, tell folks how big Washington College is. I think we didn't get to the size of your institution.
Right. We're about 1,000 students, which is typical for a small liberal arts college. And we really pride ourselves on being small and being able to have small class sizes all the way through. So no 500-person lectures. Students really get individual attention here from the day they walk onto campus as a newly matriculated student. And let's see, what else can I tell you about us? I think that I mentioned the history, which is really special. The fact that we really are in this beautiful agricultural part of the state, but still only about an hour away from places like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and even Philadelphia. So students really can access opportunities both here in Chestertown and on our campus, but also through internships and other exciting opportunities in some of those larger cities that really aren't that far away.
Absolutely. So let's pivot a little bit, because you're pretty recent. You started during COVID, right? Or right before COVID?
Right. I started about a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So talk about how COVID, how you managed yourself, obviously, and managed the institution through COVID.
So I came in right in the middle. A lot of people will say to me, Mike, what's it like starting a presidency during the middle of a pandemic? And I say, well, I don't know any other way to do it. It's the only, it's the situation that presented itself to us. But Washington College handled itself much the same way that my previous institution did, which was also a small liberal arts college. And so we immediately shifted to online teaching and learning until we felt that we had protocols in place that would bring safety and security to the learning environment again. So that meant generally a spring 2020 semester and a fall semester that were completely remote, and then gradually bringing students back in the spring of 2021 to live in residence halls so they could start to have that residential college experience again, because we have built this beautiful historic campus that's for people to experience in person. We can shift online. One of the things that I'm proudest of is how our faculty made that transition. Higher ed sometimes gets a rap for not being nimble and not being innovative. Well, I will submit to you, we were nimble, we were innovative. People did not know how to do these things, and they learned them quickly. And not only did they teach over Zoom, but they developed all kinds of facility with digital and online tools for learning, that a whole range of them in different disciplines. So I'm really proud of how our faculty managed.
So I'm assuming with that, you feel like there's things that you are going to continue beyond the pandemic that you see will have changed. So what are some of those things you think are going to change? And I talk about yourself, what are some things that you started doing because of the pandemic that you think yourself you're going to continue doing, both personally and professionally?
Yeah, well, let me give you a really concrete example there. From the discipline that I come from, which is foreign languages and literatures teaching, one of the things that we always relied on traditionally in teaching those things was in-person oral presentation, which we still are going to do. That's really, really important skill for students to learn. But one of the things that we discovered during the pandemic, when it wasn't possible to be together in a learning environment, was all kinds of tools like Flipgrid and small tools that you can use to record yourself and be creative. And what we realized was that this was giving students opportunities to be truly innovative and creative with the way they were making their own presentations. They could do it in different locations. They could bring in other people. They could do all sorts of creative things with that. And so these are tools that, we turn to out of necessity, that we realize have tremendous advantages now for student learning.
And what about yourself? What are some things that how did you manage yourself during, because I talk about my own self, particularly in those early days when you couldn't go anywhere back in 20, it was, catching up on old movies and keeping some books. I got a little bit into some more better exercising. But what are some things that you think you did for yourself that you're going to continue once, now that we hope we're moving away from this thing?
Yeah, I hope so too. I think we are gradually. That's tough to say. One of the things that was I don't want to talk about benefits from the pandemic, because it was truly a terrible event for so many people.
Yep.
But I'm part of an academic couple, and my wife teaches at a different institution. And so during the pandemic, we actually were able to live together and do a lot of cooking at home and look after each other. And that was pretty special. And I think some of those some of those memories will live with me, and I'm certainly a better home cook now than I was before.
No, see, I gotta ask, what's the favorite dish? What's the favorite dish?
Anything I can grill, let me tell you, anything I can put on the grill.
Look at you, look at you. Good, good, good. Let's talk a little bit about, you get your 1,000-person campus, so that's actually very small. But talk about even though you are there, and again I got to visit, the role that diversity, equity, inclusion are playing, both from a campus life point of view and obviously how you think about the impact that Washington College is having there on the Eastern Shore.
Well, this is a really good topic for us to talk about today because I'm very proud of the work that we've done over the last couple of years. One of the first things I did when I came to Washington College was to appoint the very first senior equity officer for the college. There had been lots of work around diversity, equity, and inclusion taking place in various places on the campus, but not a coordinated effort. And so what I realized was, let's take all that good energy, let's give it some strong leadership, and really see what we can do in terms of making our learning environment as diverse as possible and as accessible to all people, and also bringing people to campus who traditionally have not been able to enjoy this type of education in the past. And so Dr. Alicia Knight became our first senior equity officer and associate provost for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what she has been doing, she's been really putting most of her energy in these early days into finalizing our strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So Alicia Knight has been working very hard to build consensus around the strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion at our college. And that's a really important process because you can have the best plans that you can imagine, but if they don't have support of the community, if people aren't ready to roll up their sleeves and make those changes happen, then it just remains a plan on paper. And so I'm very excited about the way she is building consensus. It'll be presented to our Board of Visitors and Governors in February, and it will be approved at that time. And I'm very excited about what that means for student recruitment of diverse populations of students, for hiring on campus, and for the way in which we're moving to change our curriculum in meaningful ways so that again, everyone sees themselves reflected in what's taught and what's learned on our campus.
Man, that's great. That's great to hear. That's great to hear that you sound like you have the campus behind you. It's not just about her. It's about having the campus, the whole institution. And it's not just a bunch of letters and a bunch of words, but it's ingrained in who you do, what you do, and how you hold yourself accountable as well.
That's right. That's exactly right. It has to become a daily practice. It has to be our way of being. And Alicia's a terrific leader in that regard.
That's good to hear. So look, as we begin to close this out, a couple of things. So, you've been there about a year and a half. Again, I truly enjoyed my visit, be back, and we clearly are doing some stuff together. But if you could kind of do the crystal ball, look out the next 3 to 5 years, what does Washington College look like? What is Chestertown? What is that community? What's that impact starting to look like for you?
Well, two things. I think that the college has opportunities to become a much stronger economic driver of activity on the Eastern Shore and in Chestertown. And so we're looking actively at ways in which we can help the town in partnership with the town of Chestertown and with Kent County to develop economically in ways that are beneficial both to the college and the region. And I think we have some really terrific opportunities there through properties that we have been gifted close by to campus, right in Chestertown. We have an old manufacturing facility that we are considering developing, all kinds of interesting projects. Some of them on the drafting table right now are things like innovation hub, right? And an economic development hub that we could really help benefit the town with. We're looking also at the development of waterfront property that we think has the opportunity with key partners to, again, bring economic change to the college and also the town in powerful ways that will be a good employer for the region, and also bring people through tourism and other kind of activities to really come and enjoy the Eastern Shore and the Chesapeake area in specific. So those are some things that are absolutely in the offing, and we're hoping we'll be able to talk more about what those look like very soon. We're also launching our strategic plan, which will be approved by the Board of Visitors and Governors at the end of February. And again, no surprise there, we have some really wonderful natural assets, including all of our environmental assets that I think, when marshaled together under the proper leadership will be a truly distinguishing feature for the college and help us to stand out as a really terrific and powerful educator for our young people.
Sound like you're gonna have a busy February board meeting.
It's going to be epic.
I love it. So look, I want to circle back to some fun stuff. So back to the background I have. You can notice the color of it is a red wine, because I understand you are a red wine kind of guy.
I do like red. I like all kinds of wine in moderation. Absolutely.
In moderation.
Always in moderation.
Always in moderation. So favorite red.
Let's see. So, I've been favoring Pinot Noirs lately. I don't know why. I just think they're kind of delicate.
Yeah, I've been doing the Malbec and the Merlots. Is what I've been very, very much onto that.
Yeah, Malbec's a nice, strong, kind of spicy edged wine.
Exactly.
Really good. Yeah.
So we're going to test you here as we close. So you kept saying how you're a student of languages, and I know you're a German guy. So we're going to ask you. So we're going to ask you to answer some of these questions in German as we close. Okay.
Jawohl, machen wir das.
See, there we go. Favorite vacation spot that you have visited in German?
In German, okay. Vacation spot is Ferienort. So mein Lieblingsferienort in Deutschland ist Garmisch-Partenkirchen, wo man Ski fahren kann.
Very good. Favorite book that you've recently read?
Auf Deutsch, nochmal auf Deutsch. Well, das Buch ist auf Englisch. Es hat einen englischen Titel, aber das Buch heißt Magic is Dead.
Oh, look at you. Impressive. Very simple one. Favorite color?
Meine Lieblingsfarbe ist rot.
President Mike, thank you for your time today. Thank you for all you're doing for Maryland, obviously for Washington College and the Eastern Shore. I really do appreciate you. I've enjoyed our conversations that we've had. I appreciate this time today, and I look forward to spending more time with you. To our friends out there, thank you always for listening. Really appreciate all the feedback we get. Again, have a super 2023. Thank you all. This is Troy Lamel Stovall, the CEO of TEDCO, for TEDCO Talks. Thanks a lot. Take care.